I'm Alexandra Morgan, 32, standing in my ivory wedding gown at what should be the happiest moment of my life. The Grand Plaza ballroom sparkles with crystal chandeliers as my father Ryan approaches the microphone. My stomach knots instantly. Throughout my life, his words cut deeper than knives, each criticism perfectly aimed to wound. Little does he know about the empire I've built in silence, the success I've hidden from my family for years. The bank statements in my assistant's tablet would shock everyone in this room. Where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments, hit subscribe, and let me know if you've ever kept a massive secret from your family while they underestimated everything about you. Growing up in our Beacon Hill brownstone in Boston meant living under the shadow of generations of Morgan success. Our family wasn't old money, but my father Ryan desperately wanted us to be. He'd built Morgan Business Solutions from the ground up, providing corporate logistics consulting to Fortune 500 companies. To the outside world, we were the perfect family. Father the successful businessman, mother the gracious hostess, brother the heir apparent, and me, well, I was just there. My father had specific ideas about success, all revolving around traditional business paths, prestigious universities, and the right connections. My mother, Grace, though loving in her quiet way, always deferred to him. "Your father knows best," Alexandra, became her mantra whenever I questioned his decisions or judgments. She valued appearances above all, hosting dinner parties where she'd parade my brother's achievements while I was asked to help serve dessert. Ethan, my brother, 3 years older and infinitely more favored, followed our father's path precisely. Right schools, right internships, right attitude. When he joined the family business after college, my father practically threw a parade. "This is what carrying on a legacy looks like," he announced at Ethan's welcome dinner. I sat quietly, picking at my food, invisible as usual. My crime? Being different. While Ethan excelled at economics and business administration, I fell in love with computers and coding. At 12, I built my first rudimentary program. At 14, I was redesigning our school's internal website after hours. My report cards showed straight A's, but because they were in impractical subjects like computer science and advanced mathematics, they were met with indifference. "Computers are for playing games, Alexandra, not for building a future," my father said when I showed him my first coded project at 13. He'd barely glanced at the screen before dismissing it and turning back to his Wall Street Journal. The science fair in sophomore year of high school became a pivotal memory. I developed a prototype algorithm that could predict traffic patterns and suggest optimal routes, pretty advanced for a 16-year-old in the early 2000s. I won first place and qualification for the state competition. When I called home with the news, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," while I heard my father in the background. "Beginner's luck. Wait until she faces real competition." I did face that real competition at the state level, and won again. The local newspaper featured my project. My father's response? "Don't let this go to your head. This won't pay the bills." That same year, I developed my first app concept, a precursor to what would become my future company's core product. When I explained the idea to my parents over dinner, outlining the market potential and programming requirements, my father laughed. "Alexandra, stop wasting time on these fantasies. This is why your cousin Jennifer is already interning at Goldman Sachs while you're playing with computer games." My mother added, "Honey, maybe focus more on subjects that could get you into your father's alma mater. Technology is a fad, but business skills are forever." The college application process became a battleground. I wanted MIT or Stanford for their computer science programs. My father insisted on Harvard Business School, his alma mater. When my MIT acceptance arrived with a partial scholarship, he refused to pay the remaining tuition. "I'm not funding this rebellion," he declared. "Harvard offered you a spot based on my recommendation. You'll study business administration like we discussed, or you'll pay your own way." I chose freedom. With my savings from tutoring, a student loan, and working 20 hours a week at the campus tech support center, I funded my first semester at MIT. The tiny apartment I shared with 3 other students was a far cry from our Beacon Hill home, but it was the first space where my ideas weren't immediately dismissed. My mother called weekly, her voice always tinged with disappointment. "Your father might reconsider if you'd just transfer to Harvard for spring semester," she'd suggest. "Ethan's already being groomed for management. Don't you want to be part of the family legacy?" The family legacy had never included me anyway. At holiday gatherings, I became the cautionary tale. Alexandra's phase, they called my education and interests. My cousin Jennifer, with her investment banking internship, received toasts while I was asked when I'd get serious about life. Even when I made the dean's list, the achievement was minimized. "Computer stuff might be easy for you," my father said during a rare campus visit, "but Ethan is managing real business challenges." The constant comparisons and dismissals built walls around my heart, brick by brick. Each criticism became motivation, each dismissal a challenge to prove them wrong. Not for their approval anymore. I'd given up on that, but for myself. By junior year, when I developed my first marketable software solution and won the campus entrepreneurship grant, I stopped sharing my achievements with my family entirely. Their reactions only dampened my spirit and resolve. Instead, I poured that energy into building something they could never dismiss, though they wouldn't know about it until years later, on what should have been the happiest day of my life. MIT became my sanctuary and battlefield simultaneously. The sanctuary came from finally being surrounded by people who spoke my language: code, algorithms, innovative thinking. The battlefield emerged from the constant struggle to stay afloat financially while maintaining academic excellence. My father's ultimatum about Harvard remained firm, so I cobbled together a financial existence through multiple jobs. Mornings at the campus coffee shop from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., classes until afternoon, evenings at tech support, and weekends doing freelance coding projects. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. My tiny shared apartment in Cambridge was a far cry from Beacon Hill. 4 of us crammed into a 2-bedroom with furniture salvaged from curbs and thrift stores. The winter of sophomore year, our heating failed for 2 weeks. I coded wearing fingerless gloves, a scarf, and 3 sweaters, refusing to call home for help. During an advanced programming structures class, I met Professor Diana Hayes, a former Silicon Valley executive who'd chosen academia after selling her security software company. She noticed my project during lab hours and stayed late discussing its potential applications. "You're thinking too small," she told me, circling portions of my code. This algorithm could revolutionize how enterprises manage distributed workforces. "Have you considered commercial applications?" Professor Hayes became the mentor I'd never had. She introduced me to industry contacts, recommended additional coursework, and most importantly, believed in my vision when no one in my family did. The truly innovative never fit neatly into existing structures, she told me during one late-night coding session. "Your family wants you to follow a path they understand. You're creating one they can't even imagine." In the student housing lottery the following year, I was randomly assigned Jenna Wilson as a roommate. A business school student with a minor in computer science. Initially, we seemed mismatched, her extroverted energy against my intense focus. But at 2 a.m., finding her still awake analyzing market trends while I debugged code, something clicked. "Your algorithm could solve the exact problem I'm studying in my distribution systems course," she said, peering over my shoulder. "Have you ever thought about turning this into a startup?" Our complementary skills formed the foundation of what would become Morgan Innovation Technologies, though at the time, we just called it the project. Jenna understood markets and business models. I understood technology and programming. Together, we entered the campus entrepreneurship competition with a prototype platform that could optimize supply chain logistics in real time. We won first place and $50,000 in seed funding. When I called home with the news, my mother answered. "That's nice, dear," she said distractedly. "Did you hear Ethan just closed Morgan Business Solutions' biggest account yet?" Your father's taking the whole family to Bermuda to celebrate. Well, except you, since you're busy with your school projects. That seed funding allowed us to rent a tiny office space, really just a converted storage room in an old factory building. We lived on ramen, coffee, and determination. Our first real product took 8 months to develop, during which I averaged 4 hours of sleep per night. Our initial failure hit hard. After launching the platform, we secured only 2 small clients, nowhere near enough to sustain operations. One night, after losing a potential major client, I broke down in our empty office, questioning everything. Maybe they're right, I sobbed to Jenna. Maybe I'm wasting my time on fantasies while Ethan's building something real. Stop it, Jenna said firmly. Your family doesn't understand what you're building because they're still living in the last century of business. You're creating for the next century. We pivoted our product, focusing more narrowly on predictive analytics for inventory management. The revised platform attracted interest from several mid-sized manufacturing companies, giving us enough revenue to survive another year. During this struggle, Ethan occasionally reached out. Unlike our parents, he showed genuine curiosity about my work, though he couldn't fully grasp its potential. During one of his Boston visits, he stopped by our shabby office. Dad thinks you'll come crawling back when this fails, he said bluntly, examining our whiteboard full of code snippets. But I told him not to underestimate you. You were always the smartest one in the family. His support, however limited by his loyalty to our father, meant something. Still, when he suggested I create a nice app that Morgan Business Solutions could market as an add-on product, I realized even Ethan couldn't see the full scope of my ambition. At a tech conference in Chicago, where we were exhibiting our platform with a homemade banner and demo laptops held together with duct tape, I met Michael Bennett. He was presenting his research on machine learning applications in logistics, directly relevant to our technology. Unlike the dismissive venture capitalists we'd pitched to, Michael immediately grasped the revolutionary potential of our platform. With dark-rimmed glasses, perpetually tousled hair, and an infectious enthusiasm for innovation, he embodied everything my family disdained and everything I admired. Your algorithm is solving problems most companies don't even realize they have yet, he said over coffee after his presentation. That's the hallmark of truly disruptive technology. Our professional relationship quickly evolved into friendship, then into something deeper. Michael joined our team as Chief Research Officer, bringing both his technical expertise and a small personal investment that kept us afloat during a particularly difficult quarter. Dating while building a startup created its own challenges. Our idea of romance became shared pizza at 1 a.m. while debugging code, or celebrating small victories with a bottle of cheap champagne on the office rooftop. Michael never complained about canceled dates when server issues arose, or when I fell asleep mid-conversation after 20-hour workdays. We're building something that matters, he'd say, bringing me coffee and a protein bar when I'd worked through the night. That's worth a few sacrifices. When we'd been dating for 8 months, Michael accompanied me to a cousin's wedding. It was his first encounter with the Morgan family dynamics. He watched in stunned silence as my father praised Ethan's recent promotion at Morgan Business Solutions, then introduced me to relatives as Alexandra, who's still figuring things out with her computer hobby. Later that night, Michael asked, "Why don't you tell them about the company? About our recent successes?" I shook my head. They've spent my whole life telling me what I'm doing isn't valuable or important. I'm not giving them the chance to diminish this too. When we succeed, truly succeed, they'll find out along with everyone else. Little did I know then how dramatically that revelation would eventually come. The real turning point came during our 3rd year of operations. After countless rejections, pivots, and near bankruptcies, we finally developed what the market had been waiting for, though it didn't know it yet. Our platform combined predictive analytics, machine learning, and supply chain optimization in a way that could save enterprise clients millions in operational costs. The breakthrough came from an insight during a sleepless night. Instead of creating something better than existing solutions, We needed to create something entirely different, a platform that could learn, adapt, and predict business needs before they became problems. Jenna leveraged her network to secure a meeting with Westfield Manufacturing, a mid-sized company struggling with inventory management. Their CEO, skeptical but desperate, agreed to implement our system as a pilot program. Within 3 months, we'd saved them 27% on operational costs and reduced delivery delays by 40%. They became our case study, our reference, and our gateway to larger clients. Strategic decisions shaped our growth trajectory. I chose to operate under the business name Morgan Innovation Technologies, a subtle nod to my family name that they remained completely unaware of. Our corporate materials listed me as A. Morgan, CEO, rather than Alexandra, creating just enough distance to prevent accidental discovery. Our series of funding round brought in $5 million from venture capitalists who finally recognized our potential. We moved from our shabby office to a modest, but professional space in Cambridge's tech corridor. The team expanded beyond Jenna, Michael, and me to include 15 specialized engineers and business developers. Amanda Pierce joined as our CTO after leaving a prestigious position at a major tech company. "I can work anywhere," she told me during her interview. "I want to work somewhere that's actually innovating, not just iterating." The early days of rapid growth required brutal hours and difficult decisions. I missed holidays, birthdays, and family events, always with the excuse of school projects or temporary consulting work, never revealing that I was building a multi-million-dollar company. My relationship with Michael deepened through these challenges. He understood my drive because he shared it. When I worried about the mounting distance between my family and me, he reminded me of the vision we were building toward. "You're creating something that will change how businesses operate," he said during a rare weekend away in Vermont. "Your family will understand eventually." Our expansion into international markets happened almost accidentally. A Canadian client referred us to their European partner, who implemented our system across their operations in Germany and France. Suddenly, we were coordinating across time zones, cultures, and regulatory frameworks. The company valuation hit $20 million after our Series B funding round. I remembered sitting alone in our conference room after everyone had left, staring at the term sheet in disbelief. The struggling student who could barely afford ramen now ran a company worth 8 figures. Yet my family still thought I was finding myself in some vague tech support role. At Thanksgiving that year, my father asked if I'd finally consider coming to work for Morgan Business Solutions in a real position. I declined politely, hiding the irony that my company now serviced clients twice the size of his. Our first acquisition came the following year, a small analytics firm with technology complementary to ours. Integrating their team and technology taught me about leadership in ways business school never could have. Each challenge, from cultural alignment to technical integration, strengthened our foundation. As our client list grew to include Fortune 500 companies, maintaining my anonymity became increasingly difficult. I declined speaking engagements and industry recognition, sending Amanda or Michael in my place. Press releases used my initials rather than my full name, and I avoided industry photographs. Then came the news that changed everything. Through industry connections, I learned that Morgan Business Solutions was struggling financially. My father had rejected modernization, clinging to outdated business models while competitors embraced digital transformation. The company faced potential bankruptcy within 18 months. The information presented both a moral dilemma and a strategic opportunity. I could watch my father's company fail, validating all my choices but hurting my family, or I could step in anonymously. After long discussions with Michael, Jenna, and our executive team, I created a shell company called Phoenix Acquisitions to purchase Morgan Business Solutions. The negotiations happened through intermediaries, with my father never knowing the true buyer's identity. The purchase completed 2 months before my wedding date. Morgan Business Solutions became a wholly owned subsidiary of Morgan Innovation Technologies, though the paperwork was structured to conceal this fact temporarily. Meanwhile, our company's valuation surpassed $100 million after a major contract with a global shipping conglomerate. My personal net worth, between company equity and careful investments, reached 8 figures. Yet I still lived in a modest Cambridge apartment with Michael, drove a practical car, and avoided flashy displays of wealth that might raise questions. The decision to finally reveal my success wasn't made lightly. Michael and I discussed it for months, weighing the impact on my family relationships against the personal cost of continued secrecy. Living authentically means eventually letting people see who you really are, Michael said as we finalized wedding plans. But it has to be on your terms when you're ready. I prepared the revelation materials carefully, company documents, acquisition papers, bank statements, but hoped I wouldn't need them. Perhaps, I thought naively, my wedding day would bring out the best in my family, not the worst. How wrong I was. Michael proposed on a random Tuesday evening in our apartment, surrounded by takeout containers and laptop screens showing code. There was no elaborate setup, no photographer hiding in the bushes, just a simple question asked from the heart while we worked side by side. It perfectly represented us and our journey together. I didn't get a ring yet, he admitted, because I thought you might want to choose it together. That thoughtfulness, considering what I would want rather than following convention, exemplified why I loved him. The next day, we chose a simple emerald-cut diamond that wouldn't catch on keyboard keys. When I called my parents with the news, my mother immediately shifted into planning mode. Spring weddings at the plaza have a 3-year waiting list, but I'm sure your father can call in some favors, she said, already mentally arranging flowers and seating charts. Actually, Mom, we're thinking something smaller. Maybe the botanical gardens or that restored industrial space in Cambridge. Her disappointment transmitted clearly through the phone. Alexandra, a Morgan wedding is a statement. Your father will want to invite his business associates. Think of Ethan's wedding, 300 guests, coverage in the society pages. I hadn't thought of Ethan's wedding, an extravagant affair that seemed more business merger than celebration of love. The memory strengthened my resolve. This is our wedding, Mom. Not a networking event. The first major conflict came when my father offered to pay. His offer came with conditions: the plaza, his guest list, his choice of vendors, essentially his wedding. We appreciate the offer, but we've saved for this, I told him over dinner at their home. We want something that represents us. My father's expression hardened. Represents what? Your continued rebellion? That computer repair shop hardly pays enough for a decent wedding. I bit back the truth. That I could buy the Plaza Hotel outright if I wanted to. Instead, I said, we're doing fine, Dad. And it's a technology consulting firm, not a repair shop. He scoffed. Whatever hobby keeps you occupied until you come to your senses. My mother, ever the peacemaker, jumped in. At least let us help with the guest list. Your father has important connections who should be there. We compromised more than I wanted to. The wedding would be at the botanical gardens I loved, but with a guest list that included 50 of my father's business associates, people I'd never met who were being invited to witness what my father still viewed as his event. The invitation process revealed deeper issues. My father insisted on formal, traditional invitations with his name prominent as host. When I objected, he accused me of ingratitude. After everything we've given you, you can't even acknowledge us properly on the invitation? What exactly have you given me? I asked quietly. You cut off my college funding. You've dismissed my career and choices at every turn. We gave you values and a name that means something, he snapped. Though you seem determined to waste both. A pre-wedding dinner with both families highlighted the contrast. Michael's parents, a literature professor and an architect, asked thoughtful questions about our work. My father interrupted my explanation of our latest project with enough technical mumbo-jumbo. No one understands what you're talking about, Alexandra. Michael's father, gentle but firm, responded, Actually, I find it fascinating. Please continue. My father changed the subject to Ethan's recent business trip to Tokyo. The bachelorette weekend provided brief respite. Jenna arranged a getaway to a lakeside cabin with our female friends from MIT and the company. These women knew my success, respected my journey, and celebrated both the businesswoman and the bride. For 2 days, I lived without secrets or diminishment. Are you really not going to tell them before the wedding? Amanda asked as we sat by the fire. The acquisition of your father's company finalizes next week. I stared into my wine glass. Part of me hopes I never have to tell them. That somehow we'll move past all this, and they'll just accept me. Jenna snorted. And part of you wants to see their faces when they finally realize who you've become. She wasn't wrong. The wedding dress shopping trip with my mother became an unexpected emotional minefield. She insisted on accompanying me to Bergdorf's bridal salon, where she'd selected 5 traditional ball gowns with lengthy trains and elaborate beadwork. You need something that befits your position as a Morgan, she explained, dismissing the sleeker, more modern dresses I gravitated toward. When I emerged from the dressing room in my preferred style, a column dress with architectural lines and minimal embellishment, her face fell. It's so plain, she said. What will everyone think? That I look like myself on my wedding day? She sighed. Alexandra, this wedding may be your only chance to truly shine in society, to make connections that could help your situation. The phrasing stung. My situation? Your career limitations. Michael seems nice, but surely you don't plan to work at that little tech place forever? This wedding could open doors to proper positions. I tried the ball gown to placate her. It was objectively beautiful, but felt like a costume, something worn by a daughter I could never be. Standing on the pedestal, drowning in tulle and expectations, tears welled unexpectedly. My mother misinterpreted. See? You look beautiful, like a true Morgan. I am a Morgan, I said quietly. Just not the kind you and Dad want me to be. I bought the dress I wanted the next day alone. A week before the wedding, Ethan met me for coffee, an increasingly rare occurrence as he became more entrenched in our father's business. Fair warning, he said, stirring his espresso. Dad's been drinking more lately. The business is struggling, though he won't admit it. Something about a mysterious buyer acquiring controlling interest. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart raced. Is that why he's been more irritable than usual? Ethan nodded. The wedding's bringing up a lot. His only daughter, his disappointment, in his words, marrying a researcher when she could have married up in his circles. He used air quotes, showing his disagreement. I've tried talking to him, but loyalty to him comes first, I finished. It always has. He had the grace to look ashamed. I've never understood why he's so hard on you. For what it's worth, I think you're doing fine. Whatever this tech thing is, you seem happy. I am happy, I confirmed. Happier than he can imagine. The rehearsal dinner became the final warning. My father drank heavily and made pointed comments about real careers and wasted potential. When Michael attempted to defend me, my father cut him off. You're enabling her delusions, son. A real man would guide his wife toward meaningful contributions. Michael's response was measured but firm. I believe Alexandra's contributions are already meaningful. Perhaps you simply don't understand them. The tension crackled through dessert. As we left, Michael squeezed my hand. Are you sure you don't want to tell them before tomorrow? Clear the air. I shook my head. They've had 32 years to see me for who I am. I'm done trying to make them look. That night, unable to sleep, I prepared a USB drive with the company documents, acquisition papers, and bank statements. Just in case. I told myself I wouldn't need it, that my wedding day would finally bring the acceptance I'd stopped hoping for. I was wrong. The botanical garden transformed under strings of fairy lights and arrangements of wildflowers. The glass-ceilinged reception space offered views of stars emerging as dusk fell. For a few precious hours, everything felt perfect. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Michael's vows brought tears to every eye as he spoke of building a life together, both literally and figuratively. My own vows acknowledged our partnership in all things love, work, purpose. If my parents noticed the references to our shared professional journey, they gave no indication. The cocktail hour passed pleasantly. My mother, perhaps mellowed by the ceremony's beauty, actually complimented my dress. "It suits you," she admitted. "You've always had your own sense of style." For a moment, I dared to hope. The reception began with our first dance to the song playing when Michael proposed. His parents joined for the second dance, their genuine affection visible in every move. When my father led me onto the floor for the traditional father-daughter dance, his grip was too tight, his movements stiff. "Quite a production for someone who claimed to want something small," he commented as we moved mechanically across the floor. "It is small by Morgan standards," I replied. "Less than half the guests at Ethan's wedding. Because you have fewer meaningful connections," he said. "Consequences of your choices." I stepped back slightly. "Can we not do this today? Just for today." He smiled tightly as the photographer approached. "Appearances, Alexandra. Always maintain appearances." The meal service provided temporary reprieve. Michael and I moved between tables, thanking guests for coming. His colleagues congratulated us warmly. My father's business associates, clearly unsure why they'd been invited, offered polite but distant well wishes. The traditional toasts began with Michael's best man, a fellow researcher who spoke eloquently about our partnership in all aspects of life. Michael's father followed with a touching speech about welcoming me to their family and his pride in both our personal and professional accomplishments. Then Michael himself stood, taking the microphone with a smile that still made my heart race after years together. "Alexandra Morgan is the most brilliant person I've ever known," he began. "Many of you don't know this, but the day we met, she was presenting technology that most industry experts claimed was impossible. That's who she is, someone who accomplishes the impossible with such quiet determination that you might miss the revolution she's creating." He raised his glass. "To my wife, my partner, and the most innovative mind in technology today." I blushed at the public acknowledgement, so different from my family's dismissals. Across the room, I saw my father's skull deepening as he drained his third scotch. Jenna was scheduled to speak next, but before she could stand, my father abruptly rose, grabbing the microphone. My mother tugged at his sleeve unsuccessfully. "I suppose it's time for the father of the bride to say a few words," he announced, his words slightly slurred. The room quieted expectantly. He began conventionally enough. "Alexandra was always a determined child. Stubborn, her mother would say." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. "When she wanted something, nothing could dissuade her, even when it wasn't in her best interest." My stomach tightened as I recognized the familiar prelude to criticism. Case in point, this computer hobby she's turned into a career of sorts. He made air quotes around career, eliciting uncomfortable shifts among the guests. The Morgan family has built its reputation on solid business principles, connections, and traditional values. My son Ethan exemplifies these qualities. Ethan stared at his plate, visibly uncomfortable. Alexandra chose a different path. Against advice, against tradition, against common sense. His voice hardened. While her cousins excelled in finance and law, while her brother climbs the corporate ladder, she spent years playing with computer code in some obscure tech support role. Michael's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. I had hoped marriage might finally bring her to her senses, that she might finally understand her responsibilities to the family name. Instead, he gestured vaguely at Michael. She's chosen to continue her rebellion with someone who encourages these impractical pursuits. The room had grown deadly silent. Michael's parents exchanged alarmed glances. Jenna, seated at a nearby table, was already reaching for her phone where I knew the contingency files were stored. "Let me be clear," my father continued, voice rising. "She'll never amount to anything following this path. A disappointment to the Morgan name and legacy. Perhaps motherhood will finally. Michael stood abruptly. That's enough. Sit down, son. You don't understand what's at stake here. I understand perfectly, Michael replied, his normally gentle voice firm. And I won't let you insult my wife at our wedding. The tension crackled as guests shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face had drained of color. Ethan looked torn between family loyalty and basic decency. A strange calm settled over me. Years of diminishment, of hiding my success to avoid exactly this type of dismissal, suddenly seemed absurd. I stood slowly, smoothing the front of my wedding dress. I'll handle this, I told Michael quietly, then turned to Jenna and nodded slightly. She immediately began typing on her phone, connecting it to the reception venue's projection system as we'd arranged in our contingency plan. I walked to my father and held out my hand for the microphone. Surprised by my composure, he relinquished it. Thank you, Dad, for those illuminating remarks, I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. I think it's time I clarified a few things for everyone here. The reception hall remained silent as I took center stage. My father stood to the side, scotch in hand, a smirk playing at his lips, clearly expecting an emotional outburst or tearful retreat. He'd never understood my strength. First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with Michael and me today, I began, my voice remarkably steady. Particularly those who have supported our journey together, both personally and professionally. I nodded to Jenna, who pressed a button on her phone. Behind me, the large projection screen descended from the ceiling. My father frowned, confused by this unexpected development. For those who don't know me well, I've spent the past 8 years building something I'm incredibly proud of. The first slide appeared, our company logo, Morgan Innovation Technologies. I am the founder and CEO of MIT, not just my alma mater, but my company. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My father's business associates straightened in their seats, recognition dawning on several faces. Morgan Innovation Technologies currently serves 43 Fortune 500 clients across 12 countries. The next slide showed our global reach with client logos most business professionals would instantly recognize. Our proprietary logistics and supply chain optimization platforms save our clients an average of 32% in operational costs annually. My father's smirk had vanished. My mother sat frozen, champagne glass halfway to her lips. Our company valuation as of last month's investor round stands at $127 million. The screen displayed a redacted valuation report from one of the most respected firms in the industry, and my personal net worth. I paused as the screen showed a bank statement with my name and a balance that caused audible gasps. Well, the numbers speak for themselves. I turned directly to my father. That computer hobby and obscure tech support role you just mocked? I've built it into one of the fastest-growing technology companies in America. His face had drained of color, eyes darting between the screen and me as though seeing me for the first time. But perhaps the most relevant piece of information for today. I continued, nodding to Jenna again. The screen changed to display acquisition documents. 3 weeks ago, Morgan Innovation Technologies completed its acquisition of Morgan Business Solutions through our holding company, Phoenix Acquisitions. The room erupted in shocked whispers. My father stumbled backward slightly, gripping the edge of the table for support. That's right, Dad. I didn't just build a successful company. I built a company successful enough to purchase yours when your outdated business practices drove it to the brink of bankruptcy. I kept my voice level, professional, the voice I used in board meetings and investor presentations. As of last Friday, I am officially your boss. Ethan's jaw had literally dropped. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth, tears forming in her eyes, though whether from shock, embarrassment, or something else, I couldn't tell. For years, you've called me a disappointment. Worthless. A waste of potential. Each word emerged clear and precise, You dismissed my education, my career, my choices, and my partner. You've done it my entire life, culminating in this public humiliation at my wedding. I set the microphone down momentarily, took a sip of water, and gathered myself before continuing. I didn't build my company to prove you wrong. I built it because I saw opportunities you couldn't imagine with your limited vision of success. I kept it secret not from shame, but because I knew you'd try to diminish it, just as you've tried to diminish me at every turn. The screen changed again, showing photos of our executive team, our offices, our products. These are the people who believed in me when you didn't. Michael, who recognized my vision from day one. Jenna, my first business partner and now COO. Amanda, who left Google to join us as CTO. Professor Hayes, who mentored me when you abandoned your parental responsibility to support my education. My father finally found his voice. You did all this behind my back? Used the Morgan name without permission. I laughed softly. It's my name too, Dad. And unlike you, I've brought it into the future. Around the room, reactions varied wildly. Michael's parents beamed with pride. My father's business associates whispered urgently to each other, several already pulling out business cards to pass to my colleagues. Aunt Catherine, who had spent years parroting my father's dismissals, was suddenly making her way toward me with a too bright smile. Alexandra, darling, I always knew you had something special in you, she gushed, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Did you, Aunt Catherine? Because I distinctly remember you telling my cousin Jennifer not to waste time with Alexandra and her computer games at last year's Christmas party. She retreated, flustered. I turned back to address all the guests. Success isn't measured by whose name is on your diploma, or which country club accepts your membership, or how many business associates attend your wedding. I reached for Michael's hand as he joined me. It's measured by the impact you make, the problems you solve, and the integrity with which you live your life. Looking directly at my father again, I added, and for the record, Morgan Business Solutions will undergo significant restructuring in the coming months. We'll be implementing the very technology solutions you dismissed as impractical fantasies when I first proposed them to you at 16. The company's survival depends on it. My mother had finally approached, tears streaming down her face. Alexandra, I had no idea. All this time. No, Mom, you didn't. Because neither you nor Dad ever bothered to actually see me. You saw only what you wanted me to be. What happens now? My father asked, his voice stripped of its usual authority. Now? Michael and I are going to enjoy our wedding reception with the people who have genuinely supported us. Tomorrow, we leave for our honeymoon in New Zealand. And when we return, you and I will have a very different kind of relationship, both professionally and personally. As I finished speaking, something unexpected happened. The room broke into applause, led by Michael's parents but quickly joined by most guests, including several of my father's business associates who recognized they were witnessing something extraordinary. In that moment, standing in my wedding dress beside the man who had always believed in me, watching my family reckon with the reality of who I truly was, I felt neither triumph nor revenge. I felt, simply and completely, free. The remainder of the reception unfolded in a surreal blur. Guests approached with new respect in their eyes, business cards extended, congratulations offered with fresh sincerity. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically that the room's energy felt completely transformed. My father left without another word, my mother trailing behind after a tearful, confused embrace. Ethan lingered, oscillating between family loyalty and professional opportunity. You could have told me, he said as we shared an awkward dance later that evening. Would you have kept it from Dad? His silence answered for him. I built this without family connections or the Morgan name opening doors, I explained. I needed to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I could succeed on merit alone. Are you really going to be Dad's boss now? Technically, yes. Practically, we'll see. The company needs restructuring to survive, but I'm open to finding an arrangement that preserves his dignity. Ethan nodded slowly. He's going to struggle with this. 32 years of seeing you one way and overnight. It wasn't overnight for me, I reminded him. It was years of work while being told I was wasting my time. As guests gradually departed, those who remained were the inner circle who had known my secret all along, Michael's family, my MIT friends, our executive team. The celebration became more authentic, filled with inside jokes about our startup days and genuine toasts to our future. Michael and I departed for our 2-week honeymoon in New Zealand the next morning. The distance provided necessary space to process everything that had happened. Between hiking majestic mountains and exploring remote beaches, we discussed the implications of my revelation. Do you regret it? Michael asked as we watched the sunset from a cliffside villa. Revealing everything? No. I regret that it had to happen that way, at our wedding, in response to public humiliation. But keeping the secret was becoming too costly personally. And professionally, he added. Turning down speaking engagements, avoiding industry recognition, you've sacrificed visibility your company needs for growth. He was right. The freedom to fully step into my role as CEO without hiding would benefit more than just my personal life. Our return to reality was jarring. Dozens of missed calls from my parents, hundreds of emails from industry contacts who had attended the wedding, and a meeting request from my father's attorney all awaited me. The first meeting with my father as company owner took place in the Morgan Business Solutions conference room, now technically my conference room. He arrived with his attorney and Ethan, while I brought our CFO and legal counsel. My father looked older somehow, diminished by the revelation. His opening statement surprised me. I underestimated you. The words seemed physically painful for him to speak. I still don't approve of your methods or your secrecy, but I can't deny what you've built. The negotiations proceeded more civilly than I had anticipated. We structured a 3-year transition plan that would gradually integrate Morgan Business Solutions into our technology platform while providing my father with an advisory role and fair compensation. Not the complete removal I had originally envisioned in my anger, but a more measured approach that honored the business he had built while advancing it into the future. My relationship with my mother evolved more quickly. Over lunch the following week, she tearfully acknowledged her role in my dismissal. I should have defended you, she admitted. I always marveled at your intelligence, your determination. But I thought supporting your father's vision for the family was my primary duty. It hurt, I told her honestly. Every time you stood by silently while he dismissed my dreams. I know that now. I failed you as a mother. She reached for my hand across the table. Is it too late for us? It wasn't too late, but rebuilding required honesty on both sides. I invited her to tour our company headquarters, to meet the team, to understand the world I had created without her knowledge. Her genuine interest and growing pride began healing wounds I had thought permanent. The media caught wind of the unusual acquisition story within weeks. TechCrunch ran a feature titled The Secret CEO, How Alexandra Morgan Built a $100 million empire while her family thought she was finding herself. The publicity both helped and complicated matters. Our company visibility soared, bringing new client inquiries and investment interest, but also intensifying scrutiny on my family's dynamics. In quiet moments of reflection, I questioned whether my revenge-adjacent revelation had been worth it. The satisfaction had been momentary, the complications enduring. Michael helped me process these feelings. The revelation wasn't just about proving your father wrong, he reminded me. It was about finally being able to live authentically, to be recognized for what you've built. That's not revenge, it's self-respect. 6 months after the wedding, we hosted the first Morgan family dinner at our new home, a tasteful but not ostentatious Cambridge townhouse we had purchased with company success. My father arrived last, still uncomfortable with the new reality but making visible efforts to adapt. The Johnson acquisition closed yesterday, he mentioned stiffly over appetizers, referencing a deal our companies had collaborated on. Your predictive analytics platform identified efficiencies we would have missed with traditional methods. From him, this qualified as effusive praise. Ethan had found a surprisingly comfortable role in our merged operation, heading a division that combined his traditional business expertise with our technological innovations. His presence helped bridge the old and new Morgan business approaches. The greatest growth came through unexpected channels. Our company launched a mentorship program for young women in technology, inspired by my own journey without adequate support. The Alexandra Morgan Fellowship provided funding, guidance, and internship opportunities for girls from backgrounds where STEM careers weren't encouraged. Watching these young women flourish with the support I had lacked brought healing I hadn't anticipated. Each time a fellowship recipient launched her first project or secured her first patent, I felt a piece of my own past trauma transform into something constructive. My father attended the fellowship's first graduation ceremony. He sat stiffly in the back row, but he came. Afterward, he approached one of the young women who had presented a supply chain optimization algorithm. Your analysis of distributed network inefficiencies was... He paused, searching for words outside his usual vocabulary. Quite innovative. Coming from him, it was monumental. The first holiday season after the wedding revelation tested our fragile new family dynamics. Seated around my mother's carefully decorated table, the ghosts of past dismissals and hurts hovered. When my father awkwardly asked about our latest product launch, I recognized the olive branch for what it was. The journey from worthless disappointment to respected CEO in my father's eyes remained incomplete. Perhaps it always would. But his gradual acknowledgement of my success, however begrudging, represented progress I once thought impossible. The true revelation wasn't exposing my success at my wedding. It was the understanding that my worth had never depended on his recognition of it. The validation I had sought for decades mattered far less than I had imagined once I finally received it. In building a company that reflected my values rather than my family's expectations, I had created something more valuable than financial success. I had forged my own definition of the Morgan legacy, one built on innovation, authenticity, and believing in potential others couldn't yet see. Looking back now, I realize that the greatest success wasn't buying my father's company or proving him wrong. It was breaking the cycle of conditional approval that had shaped my early years. Michael and I are expecting our first child next spring, and I promise that this little one will grow up knowing their ideas matter, their path is their own to choose, and their worth is never tied to meeting someone else's definition of success. So, what about you? Have you ever been underestimated by those who should have believed in you the most? How did you handle it? Did you prove them wrong quietly or have your own dramatic revelation moment? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories, and share with someone who might need to be reminded of their own worth today. Thank you for listening to my journey from dismissed daughter to successful CEO. Remember, other people's inability to see your value doesn't diminish it in the slightest.